I fell in love with sport, I reckon, when I was about 5. I remember even from grade 1, I could do my times tables by 6 because of, in the points of footy, and that was from a young age going to the footy with my dad and my brother, and I just loved it. The goals and the crowd and the close games and the passion, that's really what drew me into it. Nice and light, just a warm-up. Ready? Let's go.
Youth soccer coach Fred Rubenstein has always gotten a kick out of the highs and lows of sport.
Done! Great smother.
But at a young age, his passion for winning began to mutate into a harmful obsession.
My first very early exposure, I would say, is when I was 9. I was with my dad and my brother in a cinema room for the grand final day. There was a guy going around with a hat, and you put $2 in the hat, and you get a name for the Norm Smith. And the guy that I got, Andrew Embley, he won. And I remember it just lit me up like a Christmas tree. I started gambling regularly when I was 14 or 15. At the time, it was just $5, $10, which was my pocket money at the local venue. And the day I turned 18, I went to the bank to get access to my inheritance. That's when it really kicked off. And yeah, my inheritance was about 225 grand. And over the year, after I finished school, I dropped out of uni, and throughout that whole year, I was just gambling pretty much all day, every day. Then I'd wake up, bet on the footy, soccer, or if it was a weekday, I'd go to the pub with mates, started betting on dogs and horses, stuff I really didn't know anything about. And then I would go from there to the casino, and I'd be there from anywhere between 10 p.m. to 6 a.m, and I'd lose like 2 to 4 grand a night. I had one moment in the casino where I went to the toilet and I just broke down crying. And I was so unself-aware at the time that I was like, why am I crying? Like, what's going on here?
Over the course of 1 year, Fred lost his entire inheritance. Still, his addiction continued to consume him.
I started borrowing from my friends, and I actually stole my mum's credit card. The first 2 times she caught me, she gave me a slap on the wrist. She said, don't do this, like, stop gambling, this is bad, like, don't go to my accounts. I just said what I had to say to get off my back so I could keep gambling. The 3rd time I did it, I saw a side of my mum I've never seen. She said, if you do this again, I will call the police and I'll press charges against you for theft. That was my rock bottom. I wasn't happy being a lying, stealing gambler. I think I'm pretty kind by nature, and I'm not someone who wants to hurt other people. So I wasn't happy, but I was obsessed and consumed. Well done.
Fred's story of a destructive addiction deep-seated before his 18th birthday is devastating to hear, but it's an increasingly common one for young Australians.
A recent Victorian prevalence study showed that about a third of high school students have engaged in gambling in the last 12 months, and about 20% of those were gambling monthly, and then a further 8% were at risk for gambling harm.
Dr Simone McCarthy is a research fellow at Deakin University's Institute for Health Transformation. She says the aggressive marketing for online betting companies in modern media has made today's teens frighteningly familiar with the ins and outs of sports gambling.
We've done research for a decade now, and we've talked to young people as young as 8 years old who can tell us the names of betting brands, they know which colours they are, they know exactly how they would put on a bet because they see the ads that show the phone and exactly how you would put on a bet. The marketing makes it seem a normal thing to do when you're an adult, and that's what we're really concerned about, is this exaggerated perception that everybody gambles and it's a normal and socially valued activity.
Nice lift, Seb, great push.
I know of people who wouldn't be 18 and would be gambling and would be talking about it in society like it's something that they should be doing.
Well done.
Pretty much as soon as we turned 18, there were people with accounts in our friend group, and sort of had a few bets sort of before we turned 18, which we shouldn't. It shouldn't be a thing.
Beautiful.
In Victoria alone, an average of over 900 gambling ads airs on TV every day. But according to Vic Health CEO Dr Sandro Di Maio, the real threat to young people's wellbeing is the marketing they're exposed to on social media.
When we look at the major social media companies, the tech giants that we all interact with every day, we know that the average Australian child, by just the age of 13 years, will have had 72 million data points collected on them by these companies in the digital space. Now, this is not a space that kids can avoid. It's where they're learning, it's where they're growing, connecting. Sometimes, it's where they find their first job. But we know that every time young people spend a moment in the digital space, their data is the commodity, their attention is what is being, sold off to the highest bidder. And an example of that would be that you have, a young man that has addictive tendencies. They would be able to work that out based on the algorithms and based on the data that they're collecting. And they would then be able to target those individuals with products that are addictive and ultimately very, very harmful to their mental and physical health. And of course, examples of those would be e-cigarettes. They would be, junk food, and of course, gambling.
The social media platforms have their own rules about exposing young people to gambling advertising. I know on TikTok they say they won't show gambling ads to people under the age of 21, except we've heard from young people that they do see gambling ads. We know that young people don't always put their correct age in when they're signing up for these platforms to be able to get around the restrictions, and they can see all the content they're interested in.
Well done. Great shot, Miles. Great save. So I haven't gambled in 7 years, and I can say it's a completely different landscape. Like, it was accessible and it was online, but it wasn't as much in your face as it is now.
I think what's even more concerning is that the marketing is becoming more and more predatory and more sophisticated. It's what we call dark marketing. So it's marketing that you may not even realise is in fact marketing. It might be an influencer talking about something, being paid by the company to talk about it, but not declaring that it's marketing. It might be, a game in an app that starts to socialise the idea of gambling before a child is legally allowed to have gambling pushed on them. And that's not by accident. That's by companies preparing a new generation of consumers, children, to engage in a behaviour that ultimately comes at a huge social cost.